What's going on, everybody? Rooted in Sports Tuesdays. We are back for another fun episode. Swan Down will be on in just a few, But in the meantime, we will go ahead and just kind of get this thing cranked up. Today's episode will be fairly short. We'll be straight, kind of quick and straight to the point. We're gonna be giving a quick Super Bowl recap. Obviously we just saw the Chiefs with a very, some people say controversial. I think it was a pretty straight up win. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll jump into the NBA trade deadline and just kind of do a quick recap of that as well. Oh, there goes Swan. What's going on, brother?
What's happening, bro? What's going on? Sorry about that, man. Glad to be on once again.
Nah, all good, man. Yeah. So yeah, those are our topics for today. We're gonna keep it short, sweet, and simple. But let's get into this intro so we can go ahead and jump into the action.
Word.
And just like that. So, pretty fun. I mean, first of all, I hope those of you that were able to tune in for our Super Bowl pre-show, I hope you guys enjoyed that.
And thanks to everyone that tuned in.
Supported. A lot of fun. I know I had a good amount of fun, and my predictions were more or less correct, right? With some of the things that I said would happen in the Super Bowl. Obviously ending in the Chiefs winning. But let's really dive in to this Super Bowl, right? Go ahead and get this thing shared. But we saw Philly come into the game and kind of impose their will early on and really show that they did have the more talented roster, right?
Yeah. I think they scored on that first possession. They came went right down and scored, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. So they definitely showed early on that they had the superior roster. And honestly, if it wasn't for a fumble by Jalen Hurts in the second quarter that gets scored for a touchdown, it probably looks a lot worse going into halftime. I think the score was what, 24-14 going in half?
14, yeah.
14 going in a half.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm glad you mentioned it because I'm gonna hit on that play in a minute. I'm gonna really talk about that in a minute. But yeah.
So as a matter of fact, I'll let you start. I have my thoughts on this game. We can go all day, but I'll let you go. I want to know what were your biggest takeaways from this game, because obviously we talked about it beforehand, but I want to know what you saw.
So well obviously in a moment I'm gonna get to the holding call that happened at the end of the game and give my thoughts on that. But before I do that, I wanted to come on here and say that call is not why the Eagles lost this game. Okay.
It's not.
I think that Jalen Hurts came out, and outside of that one play, he played about as good, if not better than anyone could ask or dream of from him, right? I just think two things occur. A, in that second half, Patrick Mahomes showed why he's the best quarterback in the league, and it's no comparison. It's literally him and then the rest, right? And Philadelphia's defense couldn't get a stop in the second half. Kansas City had the ball four possessions in the second half. They scored 3 touchdowns, and they got the game-winning field goal. And then my other thing I wanted to hit on, and I really think is what ultimately came back to bite Philly, was that turnover, that fumble and scoop and score for the touchdown. Because here we are at the end of the game in a 3-point game, and even with Kansas City scoring on all 4 of their first half possessions, Philadelphia's offense outscored Kansas City's offense.
They did.
Philly had it going. You
Right.
take those 7 points away, and Philly's probably walking away with the trophy. So that just shows you in the playoffs, especially in the Super Bowl, how small the margin for error is, because a play just like that, a scoop and score just like that early in the game, in which you think, okay, we have more than enough time to regroup and come back from it. But when you look up and at the end of the game, it's a 38-35 game, a play like that comes back to bite you in the tail. And I believe that was the only turnover of the game, if I'm not mistaken. So ultimately, I think that turnover, along with Philly's lack of a defensive presence in the second half, is ultimately what caused them to lose this game. Now, I wanted to be sure that I said that. Okay.
Philly should have won. Casey Flex refs helped them win. No, they didn't.
I'm not going to say that, but here's what I will say.
Not at all.
All right. So on that call, we'll talk about that call. All right. I've had ample opportunities to look at it, and I know you've seen my reaction in our group chat right after it was called. I've had a lot of opportunities to look at it, and I also took into account what Gardner Johnson, right? I think that was Gardner Johnson. I've also taken into account what he said, and basically him admitting that he
that was James Bradbury.
Bradbury, yes. Him
admitting
that he did grab a hold of Juju. Mm-hmm. This is my thing. Was it a foul? Was it a penalty? By the book? Yes, it was. I guess this is my thing, and here's a couple things I have to say about it. I'm not sure, and when I'm finished, maybe you can really enlighten me a little more on the rule. But for me, I thought that you was kind of allowed that wiggle room within 5 yards. That's A. B, I also thought that it said in that rule that it has to impede the progress of the runner. And to me, although there was a tug, I don't think it impeded the progress of the runner. I don't think it took him off his route. And I don't think the ball was catchable. I don't think he could have caught that ball anyway. And then furthermore, I just think that in a game where they were kind of letting them play, and even I won't even go through the game, but throughout the season, I think that on a week-to-week basis, we've seen so much. In a week-to-week basis, we've seen so much more that people have gotten away with in these on a week-to-week games as far as wide receiver secondary dealings. And for me to call that at that moment, it was it the right call? Yes, I can't say it wasn't. Would I have made that call in that situation? No, I would not. And you know how I am. I'm the type of guy that unless it's just egregious, i.e., the Rams, the cornerback for the Rams against the Saints a few years ago. Unless it's just egregious, yeah. Unless it's just egregious, hey guys, I'm gonna let y'all decide it. And I guess for me, in a game that was phenomenal, first of all, I don't think we said how phenomenal this game was a great game to watch.
Really competitive.
In a game that was so phenomenal, I guess I just really wished that in that moment, although it may have been the right call, I just wish that the refs would have allowed the players to fully decide that game. So I guess that's my thoughts on the call.
Okay, so I'll say this. First of all, you are allowed some contact within 5 yards, but you cannot grab jersey. And that particular route, going to the sideline, that little whip route right there, that's going to get called 9.9 times out of 10. I've seen so many DBs get called flagged on that particular route.
And it didn't help that I believe two of the
social media.
Turn the
oh my God, Mom!
I can hear the
keeping my eyes on the road is paying off with
the share screen. I can hear the advertisement, bro. Yeah,
okay,
sorry about that.
No, you good.
Yeah, we're good now. But I was just gonna say, and it also didn't help that Kansas City scored twice on whip routes like that.
Exactly.
I think Sky Moore got one, and I can't remember who got the other one on a whip route, kind of like that. Only this one was a whip right into the wheel, whereas the other ones it was around the goal line.
Exactly. So I think that's what made it so callable. If it had been just a little bit of hand fighting, and to tell you the truth, he probably could have hooked him, and if he didn't get Jersey, it probably wouldn't have got called. But the fact that he blatantly grabbed Jersey, and these are white, and I've heard somebody mention this in sports media that they're wearing white jerseys and he had black gloves on. Like, it can't get any more clear than that. And obviously, when you see the pictures and you see Jersey, you see Tug, you know. So that's what it sucks, because it was a penalty. I guess it was the timing that people didn't like. You know, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, you know, but at the end of the day, I mean, I also didn't think the Dallas Goedert catch was a catch.
I didn't.
And they got that call.
Initially, I didn't. But when I think it was one shot when they slowed it all the way completely down to a halt, and you kind of seen possession with the 1 foot down, and then he got the other foot. But in real time, I didn't think so either.
Well, even when the replay, I didn't think it was a catch. I thought that was one that they kind of got their way, you know. So, I mean, maybe we don't have this conversation if it's 6 minutes earlier in the fourth quarter. I don't know, you know, but I guess it was just the timing that made it so much worse. But it was definitely a hold. And at the same time, we looked at this Philadelphia defense, and they were very talented, but I just had this eerie feeling that Kansas City was going to come out with all these misdirections and screens, and they completely stymied that pass rush. I mean, these guys didn't get a sack on Patrick Mahomes. And this was the team that led the league in sacks with 70. You know, they did that was probably as good of a game plan as I've seen Andy Reid put together for that unit, for that ball club. But kind of just really looking at the game as a whole, you know, looking at Philly, they played a great game, especially on offense. They controlled the clock. I think you saw me put this in the chat. I said it is otherworldly the way that they're holding this ball. I mean, and they're not. Go ahead.
And you're absolutely right about that. And it's crazy that they found a way to control the clock, seeing how, if you notice, Kansas City outrushed them.
They did.
Kansas City had 158 rushing yards to the Eagles 115, and Jalen Hurts was their leading rusher with 70. So outside of Jalen Hurts really getting out of the pocket, as far as that little running back trio of theirs, they really didn't get it going.
It's true. So they just held. They were able to complete timely passes and really just kind of just hold on to the ball. And it wasn't effective
on third and fourth, especially in that first half. I didn't think Nick Sirianni was going to punt at all during this game, because it was fourth and whatever. He was sending the offense right back out there, but they were converting though.
And what I liked about Kansas City's defense is that they really were getting leaned on for most of the game. All they needed was about 2 or 3 key stops, and they got them. 2 or 3 key stops, and Pat was going to clean up and handle business. And, you know, we talked about this in the pre-show. I just knew that Travis Kelce and Juju Smith-Schuster were going to cause them a lot of problems, because they were going to put, like I said they were going to put Juju in the slot, and you're going to have 6'1", 220 pounds of him leaning on Avonte Maddox. And for Travis Kelce, You're either going to try to cover him with TJ Edwards, which they tried and it didn't look good, or you're going to put a smaller Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on him, right? Which to me robs them of a great playmaker that's like a chess piece in their secondary. So it's so hard because it was a great game. Like Philly put together a great game plan.
They did.
Offensively, defensively, I think they are so used to. I think this is the story of their defense. Great defense, but they're so used to playing with the lead that they can just recklessly, just rush the quarterback without having a care in the world. But now they're playing, well, I can say in so many weeks, they're playing an offense that can actually keep up with them and make it a tight game. So those sacks and those pressure opportunities aren't as frequent.
Yeah.
And you got, Patrick Mahomes, who, I mean, it could be 3rd and 15, and I'm confident he's going to find a way to make the damn pass.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And then even with an ankle injury, you still have to compensate for his feet because he converted on a huge, I think that was a 3rd down when he made that run on that last possession. Quarter? Yeah, in the 4th quarter, he made that run for about 26 yards. Right. And then one of my X factors who I had for Kansas City, Kadarius Toney,
as I said,
he made a huge play kind of in a different manner with the punt return and taking it all the way down there, which was it was almost like you felt the momentum just swing as soon as that happened. It was almost like
and if I'm not mistaken,
and they're going to cash in.
Oh yeah, and I think that's the longest punt return in Super Bowl history.
The longest punt return, yeah. And yards. it was funny because looking at it, it almost looked like he got winded toward the end. It was like he just slowed down and was like, all right, I done got us down here. Now let me go.
Well, he did change. Well, remember, he did change field.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of energy in itself. But,
and the field from our reports, and you can kind of see it too, the field conditions weren't necessarily.
Oh, it's terrible.
Guys were terrible. Slipping and sliding all over the place.
They were pretty bad. But like I said, well put together game plan for both offenses. Philly, Steve Steichen, Nick Sirianni, they understood what they were going to do, what they needed to do, and which was keep Pat off the field, which is crazy. If you're looking at time of possession, they successfully did that. Right.
Yeah.
But the thing is you have Kansas City offensively is so efficient, not consistent, efficient, which means if you give them 4 opportunities, they're going to score on at least 3 of them. That's efficient.
And if you really look at it, they came up with huge plays on all 3 facets, of the game. Obviously we know what their offense can do. The defense, although they gave up 35 points, they were able to get a scoop and score, which was huge. It was huge. And then
I'm gonna say this
on special teams, Tony's able to get that huge punt return. So they got huge plays on all 3 facets of the game.
All 3 facets of the game. And you said the scoop and score. I said they was about another step away from having another scoop and score. Right. If I want to say they forced a fumble on Miles Sanders.
Oh yeah, but early in the game, yeah.
Yeah, early. Yeah. Well, no, that was in the second half.
Was it?
It'd have been another one, But so it's plays like that. And like when I saw the first turnover, I said, okay, Kansas City, they know that they're not a great defense. But they're gonna find a way to get it done because they were out. If you really look at it, they were physically outmatched.
Yeah,
I mean, they didn't have the secondary to consistently cover Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. They didn't have a body for Dallas Goedert, and they could not, which is crazy that they could not get to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts had all freaking day.
Yeah, and I think I can't say enough about how great a game he played. I mean, he threw for 300 yards. And a touchdown, ran for another 70 yards, and ran for 3 touchdowns, which I think is I think that was the most rushing touchdowns in Super Bowl history.
Super Bowl history. Yeah, either he beat or he matched Terrell Davis.
Yeah. So I mean, he played outside of that one mistake. He played a heck of a game, and then the two receivers, Devontae Smith had 7 for 100 yards. AJ Brown had 6 for 96 and a TD. I mean, you got your two stud receivers to step up. Like I said, I think it was really surprising to me because I felt like Philly was the more physical of the team, and it's just crazy. And we mentioned how it happened. You know, they continue to convert on third and fourth down with timely throws or whatever. But it was just crazy to me that, you know, outside of Jalen Hurts, you know, as far as their running back trio, they really couldn't get it going. You know, you take away the 70 yards from Jalen Hurts, and they only amassed 45 yards between those three backs, you know. And the Chiefs outrushed them. Pacheco had a really solid game, 15 for 76 and a touchdown. He definitely was able to convert on a few first downs and whatnot, keep the chains moving. And yeah, I felt like, you know, they got Travis Kelce kind of heavily involved in the first half. In the second half, although they may not have been, you know, huge plays as far as yard wise, he was finding Juju Smith-Schuster, and they were chain moving catches.
Right.
You know? And
critical.
Yeah,
critical chain. And I'll say this about Philly, and, you know, kind of in the same way that I said this about San Fran. Things that happen in the regular season, games that you won, games that you lost, experiences, that stuff comes back to bite you in the postseason. And one thing that I think I always said about Philly, and as a matter of fact, I think I said this halfway through the season, is that they are a first half football team. They're not a 4-quarter football team because they're so talented. They're used to, and let's correct me if I'm wrong. If we look at them, 90% of the games that they've won, they've jumped on teams in the first quarter or the first half. Mm-hmm. And then they've just rolled that hot pass rush and that defense, and they were able to beat teams in the submission. But if we look at any time that they've lost, it's when a team punched them in the mouth and they're like, oh, like, I'm not used to this shit.
Yeah.
And somebody, you know, I've heard people mention this, and this was something that I didn't really look at. They haven't played very many good quarterbacks. And ironically, only 2 quarterbacks have thrown for 3 touchdowns on this defense. One being Patrick Mahomes, who we seen the other day, and the other being Dak Prescott on Christmas. That's it. You know, everybody else, they've been playing a lot of pedestrian quarterbacks. So, you know, they're a really talented team that maybe didn't go through have the experiences or the necessary adversity to be prepared for this moment. And ultimately, you kind of saw that in the second half, that once you start seeing Kansas City get hot a little bit offensively, it was almost like the energy went down for Philly. Like, they was like, man, like, we're not used to this type of dogfight. And if we want to be real, they haven't won many games like that.
And you got to give a huge credit to Andy Reid and the adjustments that he made after halftime, because you just seen Kansas City. They came right out, took that possession right out of halftime and scored, and they were just like a well-oiled machine, just moving down the field in that second half. I'm gonna look forward a little bit.
Go ahead.
So now that, you know, the Super Bowl said and done, Kansas City's our champions. Looking forward a little bit, looking into next year, what do you see as far as from both of these teams? Obviously, news come out today. I think Philly lost both of their coordinators now. I think one took the Arizona job and one got the coach job.
Wait. They gave Gannon the Arizona job?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. I thought this. I seen it on ESPN.
Let me look at that, because I didn't know he was in the running for it. From my understanding, I thought it was Mike Kafka. I've been busy all day, folks, so take it easy.
Yeah, they hired. Yeah, Arizona hired. Gannon.
Wow, I did not see that. So yeah, they lost both their coordinators.
So they lose both their coordinators. Kansas City, I mean, we have to, as far as Kansas City, I mean, as long as there's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, you got to believe they'll be right back in the thick of things. Although I think the AFC will be a gauntlet next year, but you have to believe they'll be right back in the thick of things. They have to be early, favorites for next season. But what are you thinking for both of these teams next year?
Well, Kansas City is scary right now because this is probably the least talented team, or not the least talented. This is probably like, if you were going to beat them, this probably would have been a year.
And they're still really young.
They're young.
They're young.
They're young. They're young. Like, I don't think people realize, first of all, Pat is what, 26, 27?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Pat's mid-20s.
In quarterback years, he's
young.
You can argue that he's just now about to enter his prime.
In his prime. Right. Because I think quarterbacks don't enter their prime to their late 20s, early 30s. Yeah. That's just me. Travis Kelce is I want to say in his either late 20s or early 30s. He might be in his early 30s now.
Mm-hmm.
Kadarius Toney is young. Sky Moore is a rookie.
Yep.
Pacheco's a rookie. Pacheco's a rookie. Like Creed Humphreys, their Pro Bowl center, is like in year 2 or year 3. Like, this is a young team. And they've entered the play. Because I'll be honest, I had doubts for them coming into this season. But now I can honestly say, right. Because you looked at what the AFC was becoming. But the truth is they have built what New England, now I don't know if they'll keep it up that long, but they built what New England was able to do for 15 to 20 years, where it's just a winning machine. And after a while, your organization, it just becomes part of your organization's DNA that you win football games. So now they have that championship winning pedigree, and that's going to continue until somebody dethrones them. Will it be Buffalo, who everybody had favored to win the Super Bowl this year? We'll see. Will it be Cincinnati, who's honestly been the only team that can really threaten them?
Yeah.
We'll see. But Kansas City will be right back. All these guys are young. They'll be a year better, and they'll be more confident because they just won a freaking Super Bowl. So they'll be back. Now, for Philly, I think Philly will still be in the mix in the NFC. Mm-hmm. I don't see them being the number 1 seed again. I think that you'll see them they'll lose a few more games. I definitely see them being a top 5 or 6 seed. It's gonna be tough to see. I think
whoa. A top 5 or 6 seed in the NFC?
And NFC.
So you think next year that could possibly be 4 teams better than them in the NFC?
Why? What's surprising about that?
I mean,
okay.
They're
the
most talented. Outside of the Niners, they're probably the most talented team in the NFC, and they proved already that they can take that talent and convert it on the field.
Okay, and guess what? You just mentioned they lost both
coordinators. Yeah,
that's crucial. They're gonna have to pay Jalen Hurts, right? Now they'll have some guys around. I know they just signed AJ Brown. They're probably gonna lose Miles Sanders. That's a fact, right? They could possibly, if I'm not mistaken, they could possibly lose James Bradbury because he's going to be up for contract. He had a Pro Bowl caliber year. And if I'm not mistaken, it's about 1 or 2 other guys that are up for contract with that team. But here's the thing. Let's say their roster stays intact. If you watch them this season, it wasn't like they were just absorbently better than everybody in the NFC. They weren't absorbently better than, they played the Niners. I thought the Niners were just untested, but the Niners could easily be the 1 seed next year. Watch this. I think people are just thinking that just because they made it to the Super Bowl now that it's going to be like, oh, they're going to be a top 2 or 3 team in the NFC. It doesn't work like that. It does not work like that in the NFC. Like someone else is going to rise. I'll be honest. I said it this year. I got laughed at and said I didn't know what I was talking about. I think Detroit's going to get better. I believe everybody in the NFC should thank God that Detroit didn't make it in, because I think they would have beat somebody. Like, I think Detroit would have matched up with any team in the NFC, Philly and San Fran included. Not saying they would have won, but they would have gave somebody a real
success offensively for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. So, and then once again, we don't know what Dallas is going to do in the offseason. And I don't think it's crazy because I think Dallas matched up better with Philly than San Fran did. And I could have seen a situation where Dallas would have beat Philly in the NFC Championship. So you can't say that Philly is just better than Dallas because. So I mean that's where it gets tough. I think I like Philly and I love the roster, but we can't just look up and say, oh, these guys are going to be right back there next year. It just doesn't work like that. I wish it did.
I think there are three teams that are kind of right there in the mix. However, this is my thing. So the three teams that I think are right there in the mix as far as looking early into next year would be, Philly, San Francisco, Dallas. I just think that of those three teams, and granted, Philly did just lose, their two coordinators or whatnot. Although I like Miles Sanders, I think that they're just kind of a well-oiled machine when it comes to running the ball. And I think you've seen Kenneth Gainwell have some success. We've seen in the past Boston Scott have success. So I think they'll be able to, although not saying that it's not a pretty substantial loss because Miles Sanders had about 1,200 yards or so this year. But I think that they'll be able to kind of scheme around that. Possibly losing Bradbury could be a big loss as well. But for me, I think San Francisco and Dallas has a few more pertinent questions to me, i.e. San Francisco, the quarterback situation, they have to figure that out. That's going to be huge for them. That's been the one thing that seems to continue to hinder them. Go ahead.
But I think that's what I'm questioning. How can you say they have more questions? And we just saw Philadelphia lose two key components, like an offensive and defensive coordinator, who actually weren't there that long. So with them leaves some of the juice that they had. I guess for me, one thing I had to realize looking up towards the end of the season is I thought Nick Sirianni was the play caller this year. He wasn't. Steve Steichen was. Mm-hmm. So gone is that offense and some of that innovation. And then Jonathan Gannon, who was there, I think this was about year 2 or year 3 for him there. No, if I'm not mistaken, this was year 2 of him there because he came there with Nick Sirianni. So I mean, are you hoping that somebody on that staff is well ingrained and understands that system? We just seen Ken Dorsey try to replace Brian Daboll. What did that look like? They were still good. We saw Ken. He was just throwing clipboards and stuff in the press box. I just don't want to underrate how substantial of a loss of two coordinators. It obviously, if they're head coaches, they did a hell of a job.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I can't. A 5 or a 6 seed for this team. I just don't see that many teams better than them.
But
in the NFC,
But
maybe the Rams come back and get back to form. Maybe, but I don't see 4 or 5 teams better than them.
But I don't think what you're realizing is that the NFC, even this year, was very close in record. So like Philly wasn't 3-4 wins better than everybody else. They were about 1 to 2 wins better than everybody else. So everybody, like even Dallas was a 12-win team. Minnesota was a 13-win team. So when you say better, it's just maybe they lose those 1 or 2 games that makes them a 5 seed. That doesn't mean that they took a major drop off. It just means that they lost 1 or 2 more games. And I'll be honest, I don't think that they're going to come in. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and speaking of Minnesota, who we laughed at there, they just hired Brian Flores to be their defensive coordinator. You think they're not going to be better?
Oh yeah. I think he's going to come in and do a great job.
What if Green Bay surprises everybody with Jordan Love at the helm?
Even if that's the case for them, I just feel okay. You and I both agree. I think Detroit is a freight train heading up to the top right now. Like they're absolutely heading in the right direction, and so I see them going into next year as a double-digit win team. I still kind of I think Minnesota will be right there. I think they'll be flirting somewhere between that 9 and 11 win range. And so I think when you got two teams in a division like that, I just think we'll kind of see Green Bay kind of in that same range that we've seen them in this year, somewhere between that 7 and 9 win range. And I hope that my Bears make some improvements, you know what I'm saying, and do some with the most cap room in the NFL and the number one pick, you know. So I would hope that we do something, but I just think ultimately with Green Bay, I mean, the division is going to be a little tougher.
It is, but that is the fun part about seeing things transform year to year. Like, think about this. Like, I have to always remind people, if you'd have told me a year ago that Philly would be in the Super Bowl, if I'd have told you that, would you say, yeah, they're going to the Super Bowl? Would you agree? No, you wouldn't.
No, I don't think anyone's seen Jalen Hurts making this leap this quickly.
Well, and then also I didn't see their roster having that big of a turnover either. I didn't see them getting all these guys.
You know,
right.
you get a bona fide number one receiver and it'll do wonders for you.
Yeah, like this roster was loaded. So the turnover, not just in the National Football League, but specifically the NFC, is so much. Like, and attrition is a thing. We don't know who's going to get hurt, right? AJ Brown could get hurt next year, God forbid, right?
Yeah.
Freaking.
I mean, but that's Brandon that could happen to anybody. You know what I'm saying? That could happen.
No, it don't. Yeah.
We talk about the Niners. Lord knows any of those guys, all of those guys are injury prone.
They can't. It's to the point. And look, it's to the point to where they need to fire whoever they strength and conditioning and training because they cannot keep guys healthy.
Seriously,
they can't. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts. Kansas City has earned the right, and I don't know why I doubted them going into last season, but they've earned the right to be given the benefit of the doubt every single year, to be the favorite every single year because they've established that continuity. I think any other team, especially, first of all, I can't think of a team in the NFC that's ever established continuity. It's always been like 1 year is Green Bay, then the next year is Philly, then maybe the Rams. It's always been very flip-floppy, whereas in the AFC, it's always one big bad that kind of dominates the entire conference. Yeah. So, yeah, Kansas City will be right back until anybody can knock them off. And to me, the NFC, Philly they'll be in the mix. Right, but it's anybody's race, in my opinion. We could get a surprise team in the damn Super Bowl next year.
Yeah, I think going into next year, you absolutely have to have the Kansas City Chiefs as the favorite.
The favorite.
And once again, I do think the AFC will obviously they'll continue to improve. You know, I do think Cincinnati's going to be right there. I do think hopefully Josh Allen can kind of cut down on some of the turnovers, but I think Buffalo is talented enough. I think if Lamar Jackson gets healthy, I think Baltimore can scare some people. You know, I think I'm gonna give you a sleeper, and it's real early. I'm gonna give you a sleeper.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna give you a sleeper. It's very early. All right, here we are on Valentine's Day, 2023, and I'm gonna give you a sleeper. I really like Sean Payton going to Denver. And I still think they have. Obviously, their defense is great.
They still have a complete roster.
They still have a really good roster. They'll get Javonte Williams back at running back. I think he can kind of wheel, Russell Wilson in. Don't be surprised if you see those guys really challenge some teams next year. But
yeah,
all that aside, Kansas City is the class of the league, and they have to be the favorite right now.
Don't be surprised if these Raiders. I'm playing. I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully, Aaron Rodgers needs to go Raiders.
They officially released Derek Carr today, so I wonder.
That is so unfortunate.
I was just going to say, man, he gets such a bad rap there, man. He's a pretty. I think you can win with Derek Carr. Personally,
Derek Carr is actually really damn good. Like, he has moments where he makes mistakes, but like. Derek Carr, despite all that dysfunction with that team, he's never been god awful. Especially when you look at his numbers, like he's never been god awful. He's had moments like 2016 was his best year. That was like an MVP caliber year.
And And that I think statistically that may have been his best year, but just seeing what he did last season with the interim coach and the stuff that happened with Ruggs, and he still got them to the playoffs.
He did, and that was part of his. Bo doesn't like this argument, and Kevin probably doesn't, but it's just part of who he is as his intangibles as a leader. And I think you hate to see a guy who gives so much to a franchise and then kind of come up short. Like, to me, he's somebody you can argue with your third cousin about this. I don't give a damn. He's the best quarterback that's ever played for the Raiders.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to work back through my brain.
He's better than Ken Stabler.
I mean, I don't know. Rich Gannon didn't do it long enough. I mean, Rich peaked at the. I feel like he peaked at the bare end of his career.
Listen to me. Rich Gannon. I think Rich Gannon. He won MVP that year, if I'm not mistaken. That they played the Buccaneers, and was out of the league like 3 years later. Just madness. So, but once again, Derek Carr. If you look everything that he's done, granted he hasn't been able to win games because they haven't put the team around him, but individual play, he's the best quarterback they've ever had. But that's another story for another day. I wish him nothing but luck.
Word.
I got him going to the Jets. But yeah, man. So that is the Super Bowl, and obviously we talked some other NFL topics, but I guess to kind of finish things off, I did want to dive in really quick about the NBA trade deadline. It's been very eventful. Obviously the original domino was Kyrie Irving, or that was really what set off the big trades. Kyrie Irving going to the Dallas Mavericks, but then that followed with KD being traded to the Suns, which I absolutely did. I thought he was going to stick it out and show people that he's a leader, and
so much for that, huh?
So much for that, right? Yeah. So let's talk about a few of these trades before we go ahead and finish things up. So tell me what were some big trades to you that stood out across the league?
All right. Well, obviously the big domino here, Kevin Durant going to the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix. So just to go over it, Phoenix got Kevin Durant and TJ Warren from the Brooklyn Nets,
which I like.
Return, yeah, me too. In return, they sent Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson, and 4 first rounders. I think it was 4 first rounders and 2 second rounders. So they sent 5 first rounders. 5 first rounders and 2 second rounders. So they sent they gave up a lot for him. But I'm just to break the move down. I think that it's probably outside of maybe going back to Golden State. I think that it's probably the best place that Kevin Durant could have went. I think he'll fit in seamlessly. They have the prototypical point guard in Chris Paul. And I also think that another aspect of this move is that, Kevin Durant's the type of guy. He doesn't want to be the leader. He doesn't want to be, this, that, and the third. As he always says, he just want to play basketball.
I could argue that him and Kawhi are more alike than people realize.
They are. They have some similarities. You know what I'm saying? Other than Kevin Durant, being heavy on Twitter and clapping back on guys. But they have some similarities. But I think the underrated aspect about this move is that Kevin Durant goes somewhere where he can literally just go out there and play ball, because Chris Paul will be the vet and the leader of this team. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have to worry about doing all the extra off the court or in-game, things that a leader might have to do. Chris Paul is going to take care of that. Chris Paul is unselfish. He's one of the few truly prototypical old school point guards that we have left in the league. And I think that's what's going to make this so great. He has that other guy in he has that second scorer in Devin Booker. And then he has another very, very talented big man in DeAndre Ayton. So I think They'll probably
That's gonna be
and
nasty.
whether they decide to slide TJ Warren into the starting lineup, or they have Torrey Craig in the starting lineup. As far as a starting five, it's got to be one of the more talented starting fives in the NBA. So once Kevin Durant gets back, and once they're able to get a few games under their belt,
To get some chemistry.
yeah, I would want to play them. I couldn't imagine them being a 4 seed or a 5 seed at the end of the year, and then here you are, you're a Denver or something. You got to play this team in the second round. I couldn't imagine that.
And you know what I like about this? First of all, you hit it on the head saying Chris Paul is going to make all this work.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's going to be the glue that can hold this thing together.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that this takes pressure off of Devin Booker.
Agreed.
I've always felt like Devin Booker is great of a player as he's become. That he can kind of the line was
it
wild.
Definitely was, Ryan. It was a trip.
He can be a little flashy sometimes. You know, when it comes to his playoff performances. And
who you talking about?
Devin Booker.
Okay.
He can get a little flashy sometimes, you know, where maybe people kind of have expectations for him to be like this, you know, you can take it to the bank 30 point per game guy. And sometimes he gets in these situations, and I don't know if it's his skill set or maybe nerves. I don't know what it is. He doesn't always show up. But with Kevin Durant, you're going to get a certified killer that you're guaranteed he's going to give you 30 points he's going to get out of bed and give you 30 points.
Oh yeah.
And
efficiently too. He's going to get you 30 points in, 12 to 15, 16 shots,
So that's going to free Devin Booker up from having to be the guy and just really falling into a supporting role and honestly just shooting the thread out the ball.
Yeah. Now, if there is any worry that I still have with this team, it'll be
egos?
Number one. I'm not even worried about the egos. It'll be number one, the depth. You know what I'm saying? Like, will they be able to find, some scoring or some punch off the bench? And maybe that's where
TJ Warren come in?
TJ Warren comes in at, as long as he's healthy. We seen him put up 50 in the bubble, you know what I'm saying? So maybe that's where TJ Warren comes in at. Maybe a guy like, I don't know, Landry Shamet or one of those guys. Maybe that's where we see them kind of come in at and give them that spark. And then B, I think prior to this, it was a lot going on around the organization. I think you've heard me talk about before the relationship between DeAndre Ayton and Monty Williams. So
hasn't been the best.
It hasn't, you know what I'm saying? And I think previous to this, I think DeAndre Ayton was pretty mad that they matched that contract offer because I don't think he wanted to be there. But when you get a guy like Kevin Durant and now your expectations go through the roof and you really can see a championship window opening even wider, it kind of changes your mindset. So hopefully he goes ahead and gets it together because I feel like this is a win now move. I feel like they have maybe a 1, maybe a 2, maybe a 2-year window because Chris Paul isn't getting any younger.
No, he isn't. Or healthier.
This year, maybe next year is their window. If they don't get a championship out of this, they're in trouble. You know what I'm saying? It's a failure. You know what I'm saying? So they have to get a ring out of this.
So then let me ask you this. Obviously, the Suns, we can talk about a lot of trades, but the Suns is essentially the biggest trade. In the process, they lost Jay Crowder, who we kind of felt like he was going to be on his way out. And he ended up with the Bucks, which I like for him. I think that he's going to fit in perfect with what they do defensively.
Yeah. One of those one of my under the radar pickups, and I'll tell you a couple of those later.
How much do you think they lose on the defensive end not having a guy like Jay Crowder in that lineup? Because if you remember, I mean, he was kind of their Draymond Green type player where he could sometimes he would match up with bigs and sometimes match up with wings. And so, I mean, what do you think they lose from a defensive standpoint?
I mean, I think you were kind of seeing it this season. They have failed. If I'm not mistaken, they might be in like the 6th seed now. They have failed all the way back to the 6th seed. Now, let me preface this by saying that some of that also had to do with injury because Chris Paul had missed some time. Devin Booker missed a lot of time. Devin Booker is just now really getting back, maybe about a week or so ago. So a lot of their record did have to do with injury. But I mean, I think obviously they were already feeling a loss of a guy like Jay Crowder. And then on top of that, now they've moved their best defensive player, a guy who finished second in Defensive Player of the Year voting last year, in Mikal Bridges.
Mikal Bridges, yes.
So that could be another thing to look out for. I think you'll see a guy like Torrey Craig kind of attempt to fill that role as far as like maybe their defensive stopper. I think they're also hoping that DeAndre Ayton can stand up and be even more of a presence defensively as well. But I think it's going to be a total team effort for them defensively. Ultimately, I'm pretty sure they're looking at themselves and saying, we're going to put up 125, 130. You know what I'm saying? Can we keep teams from getting to that mark on us? You know what I'm saying? Can we keep teams somewhere in that 110, 115 range? Because they're gonna put up points. They're gonna do that.
Okay, so it's three other trades that I've been wanting to ask you about. Okay. All right, and I want to know what you think the impact would be. Eric Gordon to the Clippers.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead. I'll let you start. Go ahead.
Hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you.
Do you want me to tell you the three and you just knock them out all three?
Hold on. I'll stop here. I'll give you my thoughts on that one real quick. First of all, although I like the move, I think that it's hilarious that John Wall got sent back to
the Rockets.
Yes. After what he just said about them. But I mean, they're gonna let him go. They're gonna buy him out. And I really wish John Wall the best of luck in finding the team because he belongs in the league. But anyway, I think it's a really solid pickup for the Clippers. They also got one of the Plumlee brothers too. They got Mason Plumlee too, who can pass his tail off. But anyway, I think it's a solid pickup for them. However, one of the issues with the Clippers right now, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about this, but look out for this. I think they're going to get in the buyout market and look for someone to bring in because, if I'm not mistaken, as of right now, they don't have a single point guard on their roster because they traded Reggie Jackson too. Right. So they don't have a single point guard on their roster right now. So I think that could be something to look out for with them. But I mean,
aren't they playing?
Solid move is a good shooter, veteran guy.
Aren't they playing like Terrence Mann and aren't they letting him do some point guard stuff?
I mean, so it's kind of like a committee thing right now. I mean, you see Paul George initiating offense for him sometime. You'll see Kawhi initiating offense for him sometime. Even a Nicholas Batum, it's kind of like by committee, but they don't have a single true point guard on their roster.
Well, remember, and I guess they're still holding out hope that Russell Westbrook gets bought out, and because that's the rumor. Go ahead.
And that's an option for them too. I think the two top teams probably in the Russell Westbrook sweepstakes are the Clippers and unfortunately my Bulls. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens there. But I think it's a solid move. They replaced Luke Kennard, a shooter that they gave up as well. So they kind of replaced him. So it's a solid move, but they need a point guard. What were the other two?
Okay. Josh Hart to the Knicks.
I think first of all, I've always been a Josh Hart fan, even back to when he was with the Lakers. So I think it's another really good move. And I think they gave up Cam Reddish in the deal. I think they sent Cam Reddish to Portland. And so I'm actually excited to see the other end of that and seeing Cam Reddish if Portland really allows him a little room to grow, because Cam Reddish is a very, very, very talented NBA player. I think between the Knicks and between Atlanta, who I believe he was with first, between those two teams, he's kind of been up and down, but I think it's been more so of an opportunity thing. And so he hasn't been necessarily allowed to grow. So I'm excited to see the other end of that trade. But yeah, I mean, Josh Hart is a guy that he'll be able to come in. He's gonna demand minutes just because he's kind of a 3-and-D guy, and he hustles, he plays hard. He's a Tom Thibodeau type of player. I'll put it like that.
Okay.
He is a Tom Thibodeau type of
So
player.
it's gonna work.
It will.
Okay. James Wiseman to the Pistons. Can he find a place there?
So,
do you think that's what they're doing? Their system is going to be a little bit more of a fit for his skill set versus in Golden State. Because it kind of in Golden State, as much as we wanted to, he always seemed like a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. But what are your thoughts?
So this is my thing with Detroit, right? I think that James Wiseman, he's still young. I think that he still needs a little room to grow. It's a little alarming to me that Golden State couldn't really find any room for him consistently because I know he had a few injuries, but then even when he's healthy, he kept going back and forth between the NBA roster and the G League roster. So it's a little alarming to me that they felt like, hey, we're going to go and let this guy go. He was a number 2 overall pick.
Yeah.
And it's alarming that they felt like, you know what, hey, we're going to go ahead and let this guy go and, let him try it elsewhere. Now, as far as his fit with the Detroit Pistons, I want to be excited about it. However, the Pistons have kind of a logjam of big men. And the big men that they have are all kind of in the same mold. They have Isaiah Stewart. They have the guy that they took this year in Jalen Duren. And now that they have James Wiseman, they legit have
3 athletic bigs.
Yeah, but they all kind of play the same position. So it's just like, what are we doing here? Where you gonna find, minutes? You know what I'm saying? I like Isaiah Stewart. He's a big energy guy. I like Jalen Duren. I liked him when he was in college last year at Memphis. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I like Jalen Duren. He's a rookie who's been coming off the bench, and he brings them so much energy. He's already one of the best offensive rebounders in the league. He's an athletic guy who's not afraid to block shots. He's gonna hustle. So I like Jalen Duren. But now you bring James Wiseman into that mix, and you give up, I think it was a 3-team trade, but you ultimately ended up giving up Sadiq Bey, who was one of your better players, arguably your best shooter on the roster. So it's like, okay, you done brought this guy in. He's a number 2 overall pick. You got to kind of find some time for him. And then I'm looking here too. And to Bo's point, they have Marvin Bagley on the roster too. So they just have an influx of bigs, like centers specifically, and they all kind of have the same general skill set. None of those guys are like pick and pop guys. None of those guys are finesse bigs. Like they're all a little more true to form physical bigs. And you got 3 to 4 of those guys on your roster now. So
that's a good problem to have. That's a good problem for them.
I mean, you would think so, but the league is kind of changing now,
Right.
It's good to have 1 or 2 of those guys, but you also have to have the ability now. Everybody in the league is running pick and rolls. And in the NBA now, you kind of really got to have that ability, especially from your bigs, you got to have a big that's able to kind of switch and at the very least, at least show, in a good enough manner to that, your guard can get back around. Or if not, if you're blessed to have a guy like, say, a Bam Adebayo or something, you can switch and feel comfortable with him being out there on the perimeter guarding one of these guards.
Because he can move, yeah.
Exactly. With these 3 or 4 bigs that they got, I'm not too comfortable like they're true to form prototypical bigs. So as far as the move, I mean, we'll see what happens. I don't think it's the best place for James Wiseman to have gone, but we'll see what happens.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah. Now I was about to say, tell me about some of the before we finish up, tell me about some other under the radar trades that you liked.
Well, okay. So I think we talked about last week. Obviously, the other large move with Kyrie Irving going to the Dallas Mavericks. In the 2 games that Kyrie Irving and Luka have played together, they've lost 2 close ones. Ultimately, and I think I mentioned this last week, I think ultimately they'll figure it out. It's
Right.
gonna work. You know, it's a little tweak here, a little tweak there. I think, like I said last week, I think ultimately Luka has to continue to be the primary ball handler and the primary, playmaker.
Which I don't think he
Obviously,
minds.
yeah. I think obviously Kyrie is gonna be Kyrie, and he has to do that for 4 quarters. Like Kyrie just has to go out there and I think you've seen this yesterday. Don't worry about trying to be that team guy, and don't worry about trying to force it to fit, but just be who you are. And I think that the fit will just happen naturally. So I think that they'll be all right. We talked about the Eric Gordon move. I think it's a solid move for the Pacers, the Warriors, to get Gary Payton the second back, because he was a guy who really played a really major role for them when.
Well, didn't that trade get shut down, or were they able to finally push it through?
So from what I gathered, they were able to push it through. Was it the Hawks? Either the Hawks or the Trailblazers. I can't remember. But one of those teams just ended up giving extra compensation.
Okay.
So Gary Payton is probably going to miss a few more weeks post All-Star break, but
right back.
he will be on the Warriors roster. They just gave a little more compensation. So I think that was a really sneaky move. I think the Nuggets adding Thomas Bryant was a sneaky move. And I say that because if you remember, during the time where Anthony Davis was out, Thomas Bryant was really playing well. He was getting double-doubles and everything. And I think now Thomas Bryant going to the Denver Nuggets, he can really be it kind of frees up Jokic, especially on the defensive end. I think you'll see lineups where they kind of play together, and Thomas Bryant can hopefully be kind of I'm looking more towards on the defensive end. Hopefully he can be that kind of defensive anchor for them.
And they put Jokic more at the 4.
Exactly. And then the last move that I'm gonna talk about, another obvious one. You can almost call it addition by subtraction, but I really like what the Lakers did. They were able to move off Russell Westbrook. They ultimately they got D'Angelo Russell, and they let go of Pat Bev. Right. So they let go of saying two of the 3-point guards that were on that roster. They get back D'Angelo Russell, and they get back Malik Beasley. And I'm gonna tell you why those are 2 great pickups for them. Both of those guys are toward the top of the league, and I believe 3-point attempts and 3-point makes. Even yesterday, without LeBron playing, even just looking at yesterday alone, Malik Beasley, he was 6 for 12 from 3. He hit 5 of those threes in the 4th quarter, although they ultimately lost the game. But them having D'Angelo Russell and having Malik Beasley, both of those guys are far and away better shooters than Pat Bev, than Russell Westbrook. So it alleviates the problem that you have when both of those guys are on the floor and guys are able to kind of pack into the lane. So it's going to definitely open up driving lanes for LeBron when he gets back. It's going to give more room for Anthony Davis to work out of the post. And yeah, I really like those moves. I think you'll see both of them. Well, Malik Beasley is a 2 guard. I think that you'll see
Rui
Russell. Oh yeah, and obviously Rui Hachimura is a really solid move for him. It gives them a lot of flexibility. I think that you'll see D'Angelo Russell play off the ball a lot as well, because I think you're going to see Schroeder in kind of handling the ball, and it'll kind of free up some room for D'Angelo Russell and be a spot-up shooter, or at times create if he needs to. Obviously, we know what LeBron is going to be when he gets back. So yeah, I really like this move for them. I think that was a solid move. I think once they get healthy, I think it doesn't make them a championship contender, but I think they're firmly going to get into the playoffs, though.
The playoffs or the play-in? That's where
I'm gonna say the playoffs because I think that they'll get into the play-in, but I think they'll be one of the two teams to win in the play-in. And
Okay.
I'll be honest, if everybody's healthy going into the playoffs, I wouldn't. That's a scary team to have to play in the first round. I wouldn't want if I'm who's one right? Denver's one. I think I forgot who's two right now. But I mean,
Memphis.
Okay, Memphis is two. I wouldn't want to play the Lakers in the first round, or if I look up and I see a Phoenix in the first round. Hey man, it's gonna be it'll be some scary matchups, man. Yeah, Memphis is two, Sacramento is three, man. They're surprising everybody. But yeah, it's potentially some scary matchups. So yeah, I think the Lakers will, and right now they're 10th, 11, 12, they're 13th, but they're 2.5 games out of 10th, which is the final play-in spot. I think ultimately, as long as they're healthy after the All-Star break, I think that they'll pull it together. I think that they'll get into the play-in, and ultimately they'll win a playoff spot. And if I'm hypothetically, if I'm a Memphis and I have to play the Lakers in the first round, especially the way Memphis has been playing late, because ever since John Morant made his statement,
I was just about to ask you that. Are they still good in the West?
Hell no, they weren't good then. they weren't. Listen. And this last thing, and we can get up out of here. Last thing, right? If I'm Memphis at a 2 seed, right? If I'm Memphis at a 2 seed, and I run into a healthy Golden State team or a healthy Laker team, no analyst could tell you that Memphis should be favored in that series. Not one analyst would favor Memphis in that series.
Just based off how they've been playing.
That's just based off how they've been playing, based off the championship pedigree of the Golden State Warriors, based off the star power and the complete team now that you could possibly have in the Lakers. If Memphis runs into either of those teams, I don't think they'd be favored.
I love Memphis. They're so good for sports.
Man, him between Ja and Dylan Brooks, man, them dudes. but ever since he made that statement, though, like they haven't been playing they've lost 7 of the last 10 games. Like they haven't been playing their best ball really since he made that statement. So we'll see, man. But yeah, man, the end of the season is going to be great, man. I'm really looking forward to it, man. It's going to be great basketball. March Madness is right around the corner.
Oh yeah, we gotta. Oh shit, we gotta do our brackets.
Yeah, man, it's right around.
Watch out for my Trojans, man.
Anywho,
nah. Yeah, we definitely have to do a bracket or something, or kind of get it figured out. But
yeah, we will, man. Y'all look forward to that, man. I know it's unfortunate that the NFL season is over, but NBA season is just heating up. Like I said, we got March Madness coming up, and then hey guys, we're gonna look up and right around the corner. You go to NFL draft, so still a lot going on.
Yeah, it's coming. Sports never stops.
We here for it all, for real.
Seriously. So, yeah, man. Like I said, pretty short and sweet today. Super Bowl recap, NBA trade deadline. More to come in the coming weeks, man. But like I said, it's always fun to get together on a Tuesday, right? We could easily go back to Mondays, guys. So stand by. We don't know. We're having those conversations.
We will. Notification will be put out.
Yeah. So we'll continue to explore that. But yeah, outside of that, we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, man. Anything? Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube page, just Rooted in Sports. Don't forget to follow the page. Follow us on Instagram, which is just simply @Rooted in Sports. You can follow each of us individually. My Instagram handle is iswan_0623. And then you have Tiberius 519. Tiberius 519. We also got the Sports Exclusive Podcast, which you got another one dropping tomorrow.
New episode. Come on, they drop it every Wednesday on your head.
New
they don't
episode
stop.
Dropping tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah, new episode dropping tomorrow. So definitely check it out. Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Follow the YouTube page of Sports Exclusive Podcast. So yeah,
word.
A lot of good stuff coming.
Much love, much appreciation, man. We're gonna keep bringing y'all this heat. And until next time, God bless. We'll catch y'all later.
Catch you later.